Today we have another special edition of the Bears Lounge. What if your story could inspire someone else's journey? I am your host, Devine. I do have a special guest in the building today, someone whom I've known for a long time, and someone who is just visiting the United States. And I think he has an amazing story that could really inspire others out there. And so with that, I will welcome my longtime friend, Vitalis. Vitalis is a research fellow at the University of Sussex. Like you all know, this space is for everyone, because I do believe, and we do believe, that every voice matters and every story is an inspiration to the society. So now I do have a very good friend here, and I believe his own journey would inspire and could inspire a lot of people out there. So my friend Vitalis Manjong, he is a researcher, he's a fellow at the Institute of
Development Studies,
University in England. Okay, well, Vitalis, welcome.
Thank you very much.
So it's been 15 years since we've seen each other. And the last I saw you, you were going to Turkey for a scholarship.
Yeah.
So man, how's it been?
It's been a long journey, my friend, and thank you for hosting me on your show. I think this is the turning point for us claiming our space and shaping our own narratives. My journey has not been a linear journey. In 2010, when the then president of Turkey visited Cameroon, I was fortunate to be one of the only 4 Cameroonians who were selected to study international relations in Turkey. So I graduated with a BA in international relations, an MA in international relations, and then I worked in Turkey, where I worked in Bahçeşehir College. I was head of the Model United Nations program, which I helped train more than 1,000 young Turkish on United Nations simulation, granted an admission in the prestigious Institute of Development Studies, which is the top Institute of Development Studies in the world, where I studied governance, development, and public policy. And I'm also the founder of Sinem Afrique Medica, which is an orthopedic company that provides rehabilitations and physiotherapy equipment, and we currently work also with victims who have been affected due to a crisis. So
this is really why you are the right person to speak to right now, because with a lot going on around the world, I do believe that you have a lot to share. And so I know right now you're in the United States, you're visiting for a conference. You mind telling us about your conference and why you were there?
Yeah, I wrote a very important paper on street level bureaucracy. So street level bureaucracy are frontline workers, that is teachers, doctors, nurses. My research looks at how these frontline workers shape policy. That paper was a very important scholarly literature. And I was invited to present my research in the annual conference of accountability of public administrators. And I was fortunate to address African bureaucrats who were in America for this conference. So that's what brought me to the United States.
So that's an amazing journey. I mean, just imagine 15 years ago. So just imagine, could you have imagined that we'll be sitting here in Washington, D.C.?
No, and that's why I always say that no matter where you're born, your dreams are valid. Imagine from the dusty street of Tambi Starsen, and we are now shaping policies, discussing on how to influence policies, providing policies to top institutions in the world. That tells our story, which is not portrayed in mainstream media. And I'm really happy that we need to be celebrating this.
That's awesome. This is why we are here. Okay, this is where the action will be. Our voices will be heard. I mean, from the trenches in Africa to the skyscrapers in New York.
Yeah.
This is for everyone. I myself, as an immigrant in the United States, we do have a community here. But with all what's going on, I don't want to get into politics. I don't want to get into the politics here in the United States, the politics around the world. But we can't hide the fact that we are immigrants, okay? And I'm very proud of that. So the question is, why is it that, I find in the US a lot of immigrants, especially immigrants from Africa, they are really, really reluctant to embrace the Western culture.
First of all, let's put quote unquote some immigrants.
Yes.
Yeah, let's be very specific because I want to be careful with my words.
That's good.
Yeah, a lot of immigrants will move to Western countries or to other countries for greener pasture. Unfortunately, the path to integration has not been linear. Maybe based on where they find themselves, the settings, the kind of people they network, the places they go, the places they worship. And these are all the centers where ideologies are being spread. And some immigrants have decided to live in their own bubbles. But I want us to also shed the light on those immigrants who have been able to embrace those values and contribute positively in this country. We should not only talk about the negative part. I want a balance of story.
Right. I'm right there with you. It is, again, a space like this is to, someone might be listening out there and it's not like they don't want to integrate or they have integrated and they're like, what am I getting out of this, right? The reason I pose that question to you is just because when we look at the society, most people, it is difficult to navigate the cultural
shocks.
The cultural shock. It is difficult to navigate that.
Yeah.
So I was just look out like someone like you went to school probably or white school in international school. The question for you is, how are you able to navigate that, to break that barrier? Because it is not easy. As I speak to you, there's this imposter syndrome. There was a study in Harvard. There was a study in Harvard recently that imposter syndrome, it's really affecting the growth of immigrants and the growth of African Americans in the United States and just generally people of color. Someone like you've been through that. How are you able to navigate through that?
Yeah, I will start by telling you a funny story. When I received my scholarship letter, I went on Google to find information about the Republic of Turkey.
Yeah.
So the first thing that came to my mind was that this was an Islamic country.
Right.
So I had to choose the kind of dresses to buy.
Right.
So I went to the market, I bought all the abbadas. I bought all of Muslim dresses. Then, when I arrived in Istanbul, I was shocked how diverse, how people of all walks of life, how different values had defined the city. This story is very important to me. Why? Because when we talk about a country, unfortunately, we always portray a single narrative of that country. But when I arrived in Turkey, my perspective changed.
Right.
I realized that there are two parts, the conservative and the secularist, that exist in Turkey.
Yeah.
But when I arrived at that country, my first guiding principle was to make sure that I integrate.
Right.
And it's because I integrated in Turkey that I was able to move to the upper echelons of institutions in those countries.
Beautiful.
Yeah, in that country in particular.
Yeah. So now you would say integrating into the society, it would depend on what? Networking? What? Because seriously, when sometimes I've had conversations, I mean, I always talk to folks around.
Yeah.
The question is, what do you mean integration? I have a job. I go to work, I meet people.
Yeah.
What do you mean by integration?
Yeah. And integration, I would say, is a broad concept. And we have to draw a clear line on what we mean by integration, because there is the private sphere and there is the public sphere. And the public sphere is what defines a nation. So in every country, there is a clear-cut dichotomy between the private and the public sphere. But you can't move to a country and try to impose your own private beliefs.
Yeah. When you go to Rome, be a Roman.
Yes.
You go to America, be an American. You go to France, be a Frenchman.
You can't impose your private beliefs or try to impose your culture in that system, because the public sphere is what defines that country, is what has been written in the constitutions of that country. And when you move to that country, you should abide by the laws, respect the values of those people, and make sure that you do not try to push your own narrative or push your own agenda.
So coming and pushing, I mean, cultural differences, like diversity is beautiful.
Yeah.
Diversity is beautiful, multicultural, all these are beautiful things.
Yeah.
But like, let's say if you go to Rome, be a Roman.
Yeah.
So when people don't embrace, I know people move for certain reasons. It might be a push factor, it might be a pull factor, right? But if you make this move, why not embrace that new place?
That's something so important. I believe that the institutions of countries were shaped by people who stood up, and some even shed their blood to make sure that they had a stable democracy, a stable institution, a strong institution, rule of law. And when you move to that country, you need to respect the people who gave their life to defend the values of that country. Take, for example, if I am visiting the Hagia Sophia Mosque in Istanbul, I will definitely have to respect the laws of that place. If I am visiting the Vatican, I will definitely have to respect the laws of the Vaticans. Diversity is about embracing our differences, but making sure that we do not try to push our own agenda or look at other people's culture as inferior and our own culture as the best.
Right. Provided we are immigrants, and most people around the world today, they are immigrants or related to an immigrant somehow, some fashion.
Yeah.
Right. So this is a topic that we'll definitely continue with.
Okay.
So now, a question for you.
Yes.
A kid out there, not just a kid, someone who is struggling to find themselves in their current or new environment, or maybe back home. What is your message to them?
Believe in yourself. Try and fail. Learn from your failures and keep pushing that door. You will get to where your dreams lies. A child born in the small village of Cameroon, I would say education has the power to change the world. My parents were not rich enough to send me to the most prestigious schools. But because I worked hard, I was able to gain admission in one of the best universities in the world.
Good job, man. Congrats.
So, the key to success is hard work. There are no shortcuts. If you work hard, have the credentials, when opportunity comes knocking, you will have access to those opportunities.
Great. Speaking of that, how important, in your view, networking is in today's society to break through certain barriers?
I was just talking to a friend yesterday that unfortunately most of us work in silos. When I say we work in silos, I mean we don't really integrate. We want to live in our own bubbles. We come to a place, we surround ourselves only within our own community, and we do not want to push beyond that environment.
A comfort zone.
Yes. Networking is something very important because through that network you can be able to get good reference or referrals. I think when you find yourself anywhere in the world, try to talk to people, try to engage with people, try to visit network groups, meetings, attend occasions. That's how you build networks, seminars, boot camps.
Engage in volunteering.
Engage in volunteering. That's how you build network.
The reason I brought that up is people often feel when you go out, you meet people, there must be an immediate benefit, or otherwise then there's really no value of doing that.
Yeah.
Moving to the United States from my part, there are a lot of things that I didn't know. There are a lot of things I still do not know today. But when I meet certain people, they say, Devine, this you should know, this you should know, this you should know. I mean, we live in a free world. You can go to the internet, you Google, whatever, but there are things that you will only know from someone, from a native born.
Yeah.
So if you don't go out there, if you don't show up, if you don't interact, then, like you said, you're gonna live in that silo forever.
Yeah.
But you have to show up.
So wake up and show up every day. If we want to talk, for example, if we look at our own stories, the reason why we are sitting here is because we kept pushing, waking up and showing up every day. Because if you have to look at our backgrounds, how far we've come.
It's a miracle, man.
It's a miracle.
It's a miracle. So, yeah, I mean, this, again, we're gonna wrap it up.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for, it's been a great, it's been an excitement, not just a great pleasure seeing you, been, truly an amazing experience this weekend. Just seeing you again, hanging out with you, getting back to all the old chit chat and, just reconnecting. It's been a wonderful pleasure.
Yeah.
And so, we'll keep this going. And so, is there anything you want to, chip out there? And also, before we wrap up, you did mention your company.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about it and why you started the company?
Okay. Sinem Afrique Medica was created due to pent-up anger. I wanted to change a tragedy. In 2017, my dad was diagnosed with osteomyelitis, which is an infection in the bone, and he was unable to have a good treatment in Cameroon, and there were a lot of wrong diagnoses. One of the doctors suggested that the leg should be amputated, so I decided to evacuate him to Turkey. It was while he was on his hospital bed, I started writing that project to change the face of healthcare in Cameroon. So the goal was to bridge the medical gap that exists in Cameroon. I didn't want any Cameroonian to suffer the same fate my dad went through. So I decided to create Sinem Afrique Medica to provide physiotherapy and rehabilitation equipment and support to accident victims and to the elderly or any person who has a problem with his body. So that's the reason why I created that company, to provide that support to fill the medical gap that did exist. I am very satisfied that today we work with more than 20 hospitals in Cameroon.
It's beautiful, man.
Providing them the necessary support they need.
You see, this is very inspiring. Sometimes we see great companies out there, but there are stories behind those companies. There are people who started those companies because of certain personal reasons, And thank you for sharing that. And looking forward to getting into this conversation. It is to get the voices, to hear stories, because I know there are a lot of people in this country, immigrants. They work 24/7. They love this country. They love wherever they are, but they're just not being heard. We need to get those stories out there And I believe that the more and more people hear individual stories, it will inspire people, and at some point it would change certain government policies, because the government only operates when people.
And that's the same thing I was talking about, that when we make policy, we look at policy at the surface level. In fact, there are no participatory approach in policy. The people which that policy is going to impact their life were not consulted. When you want to design a policy, you have to look at the impact of that policy and look whether there exist any structural problems. Without looking at the structural problems, the socio-political constraint that policy may have, or people's life which that policy is going to impact, you may end up designing a policy that does not have an effective intervention.
I agree.
Thank you very much for starting this talk. We need to keep up this conversation.
This is where the action is going to be. Thanks for stopping by, my friend. It's a pleasure.